Welcome to Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On today's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point, our weekly breakdown of everything happening in the Division I college tennis world. Of course, we are back live on our YouTube channel for tonight's show, and as always, it is great to be back. Always appreciate the opportunity to engage with all of you in the college tennis world. If you have any thoughts, comments, criticisms, questions, whatever they may be for us during tonight's show, feel free, as always, to throw them in the chat. And if you are listening to this on the Great Shot Podcast feed the next day, join us next week live for these shows as, again, it's sad to say, but week 13 of this college tennis season now officially in the books in a bunch of different conferences across the country. This upcoming weekend is the final weekend of regular season conference play. As I alluded to last night, I might be shedding a tear come Sunday. It is crazy to think we are reaching the home stretch of another college tennis season, but folks, that's exactly where we are on the calendar. And let me just say, before we get into recapping everything that happened here in week 13, thank the tennis lords. These teams are delivering us every sort of excitement, every sort of drama, every sort of results you could hope for. We got that over the course of the past week. Tonight's show is a jam-packed episode for all of you listeners. We got to cover what I would consider the upset of the season. We got to cover countless teams making top 8, top 16, NCAA tournament pushes, and so much more. And thankfully, I've got the man to my left joining me here tonight to help break week 13 down for all of you college tennis fans. Of course, you all know him best as the forefather of the College Tennis Ranks Formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR, the lean, mean Michigan Wolverine, the man who spearheads our SEC coverage on ESPN Plus, and a man who does so much work for us behind the scenes as well. It's the professor, Chris Halioris, joining me once again. Chris, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. I know you are of the belief that real men don't cry, but I think I saw you shed a tear last week as you came to the realization we only have one more weekend to flex your broadcast software on everyone. How are you feeling, my friend?
All that means is I'm running out of opportunity to test it. So, no, yeah, it's crazy to think that I think that, a lot of the conferences finished this week, primarily in my world, since I'm doing the SEC broadcast this year. It's the final weekend of the regular season in the SEC. There are a few others that go 1 week further before we get to the NCAA. But yeah, it's hard to believe we're at the end of another year already.
No, you don't realize this, but Michigan State actually plays Wisconsin on May 31st. So we're going to finish the NCAA tournament, then we'll come back to finish the Big Ten season, and then we'll call it a wrap on the year. No, it is crazy to think, again, another round of senior days coming up, and there are so many classes across the country. I talked about this with Jay last night as it related to the women, but on the men's side, you think about this Virginia class, what they've meant to this Coach Pedroso era at Virginia, obviously bringing in back-to-back titles these past 2 years. You look at players from this Texas roster, like what they have accomplished over the last 5 years. The Ohio State roster, obviously national indoor champions, and just I can point to different teams across the country, what this senior class is, and Jake Fernley's been a part of 2 TCU national indoor championships. I'm feeling emotional. Again, it's our final year of the COVID Super Seniors. We've had half a decade with this group, and as I said last night, if you've done anything for half a decade and you've done it even half decently, you're going to leave some sort of legacy behind. And certainly there are players who have done more than half decently during their runs here in college tennis who we look forward to honoring over the course of this home stretch. But Chris, we got to get right into it because we have so many different storylines to cover. It's why we're wearing matching hats here tonight, because we're both going to have to wear a lot of them as we try to get through everything. Let's start with what we just have to call the upset of the year. Let me say that again. This was the upset of the year as Pacific knocks off San Diego 4-3. This Pacific team was not flirting with the NCAA tournament, despite a fabulous record of 13-1 coming into this match. But the ranked wins weren't there. Again, this was a team clearly on the outside looking in. On the other side, you had a number 13 San Diego team with what they did to Stanford and how they competed through the first 2 months of the season. It just felt like they had consolidated and were going to probably hold on to that top 16 status they had achieved if they just took care of business the rest of the way. And look, Chris Halioris, when San Diego took the doubles point and took it fairly comfortably, you thought, okay, this match is going to be business as usual. At no point until I got a text from you after the match that Pacific had won the match did I even consider checking the scoreboard for this match, Chris Halioris. And yet, Pacific comes out. And yes, it was against an Oliver Tarvit-less San Diego team. Oliver's been a top 10 player in the country all season long. He's the number one singles player in their lineup. But without him, Pacific comes out. They get straight set victories at 1, 4, and 6, Chris Halioris. And then in the end, Thiago Silva, 7-6 in the third. He knocks off Danilov. 4-3 win for Pacific. You look at what this win means for this team. Not only are they 14-1 now overall on the year, which, by the way, right up there with Denver, Ohio State, the best in the country in terms of individual win-loss record. They're up to 47 in the rankings now, Chris Halioris. Welcome to the NCAA tournament conversation. Let's start glass half full. What a moment this is for Pacific, Chris Halioris. Your thoughts on this win?
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. Like you said, it brings them from, in the 60s, 70s range to NCAA tournament bubble, and not a place that, frankly, they even expected to be at this point. They probably had in the back of their head thoughts that, hey, maybe we get there if we pull an upset off over USC. We beat Pepperdine and Santa Clara. But not in a million years did anybody dream this was coming. And I mean, what a result for them. Just crazy to think that things like that still happen. San Diego comes in the top 15. And yeah, all of a sudden they put Pacific right in the hunt for a tournament bid.
Last 2 years, 5-15 in 2023, 6-17 in 2022, 14-1 now overall on the year. A win over a San Diego team. I know they had the loss early in the year to Oregon, but again, you look at what this team still has left on their schedule. They still have that massive regular season finale at home against Pepperdine. And if you are anywhere within the vicinity of Stockton, California, where this match is being played, I think you have an obligation to attend it as a college tennis fan. Again, matches with Santa Clara, that's a road match against the current number 58 team in the country. You win that one. Again, it's not like they're, 60 now in the country. They're 47. They're 5 spots out, plus or minus a few. They're in the ball game, Chris Halioris. And again, after all of that losing for the past 2 years, for this group to turn things around in this fashion and put together this sort of season, it's just what makes this sport so special, is that if you do stick around, if you do persist, you have the ability to turn things around and go on a run like this. And so, again, a really impressive victory. Again, that's a really good win, by the way, for Peter Lam. 3-3 over Roland Lambert. 3-3 at the top spot. I don't care that it's not Tarvert. That's a really impressive win. And again, I'm just looking at this Pacific roster and, where they go from here moving forward. Yeah, they have a bunch of seniors and fifth years, I think 4 of them overall on the roster. But, Silva's a sophomore. There are some things to build around moving forward. And so this is a massive moment and just one of those really special things. 7-6 in the third to clinch 4-3 at home against a top 15 player team in the country. That's what this sport is about.
And did you see those breaker scores in that match?
Yeah, it was crazy.
They were both. I think that one went 7-6 something, 7-6, and I think both breakers were 7-0.
Yeah.
It was, but yeah, I had an opportunity. It was, I don't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday. It's been a really long week. But I had the opportunity to talk to Coach Goodman after that win. Obviously, all things related to, all right, so now we're in the hunt. What does that mean? But Yeah, I mean, he couldn't say enough good things about his team and how the guys are really clicking now. And they're excited for the opportunities that they've got coming against the schools, frankly, that, we're going to give them the opportunity to get in. Are going to be two matches that are going to give them a good opportunity to make the tournament.
Yeah.
So,
And look, we have to talk about the other side. This eliminates San Diego from the top 8 conversation. No doubt about that. But they're still 15 in the rankings. They're still 17-3 overall. Like, they'll still have a conference tournament to try and consolidate their spot as well. But again, their win over SMU, I think, continues to age well. Arizona State, Oklahoma State wins are always going to be good. The Stanford win they picked up seems to only be getting better. By the way, they have 2 Arizona State wins as well as a win over Arizona. Like, this team's fine. Like, I still think they're going to be top 16 and weather this. And again, in the locker room, you're very ticked off. I always think that's actually a good thing for a team. It just doesn't allow you to rest on your laurels. You got to reset. But also, deep down, you're like, yeah, but we didn't have Holly. And that really matters for this group because Tarvert's been the tone setter. Like, just the grind he is at one. That's what you got to go through. And so I don't hit any sort of panic button. I really don't. I know that's the rosiest possible view. And again, this is a bad loss. There's no denying that. But they didn't have their number 1 player, and they lost 4-3 on the road, 7-6 in the third. Yes?
yeah,
Fair?
yeah, fair. I mean, I think all things considered, sure. Are the guys overly concerned? No. Should we be a little bit concerned? Sure. I mean, one guy shouldn't take you out of it like that. Granted, it's Oliver Tarvett,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that, given everything else they've done this year, you get a pass.
That's exactly it. This is the one mulligan you've earned. Congratulations.
Yeah, we're not going to give you 3 or 4. You get one,
Yeah.
and that was it.
And especially when you're not a Power 5. You literally only get one because another bad loss like this in the regular season, a bad loss early, let's say, in a conference tournament, that would be an issue for this team, certainly, as you look at their top 16 case. But it's the upset of the year. Pacific, welcome to the ball game. 14-1 overall, Chris Halioris. That's not too shabby overall on the year. Speaking of welcome to the ball game, NC State makes their top 16 case this past weekend. Really good weekend for a Wolfpack team that we've gone back and forth on, I feel like, this year all season long. And look, I get to see our ACC coverage, so I get to see this team a little bit more frequently, certainly, than you do. Obviously, I get to see them every week. This team is experienced. This team has variety throughout their lineup. This team can take it to opponents. And that's what they did this weekend on the road. 4-3 win over Florida State. 4-3 win. They had to grind out over apparently very frisky down this home stretch of the season Miami team. But you start to look now at the resume of this NC State group. They're 15-5 now overall on the year, Chris. They're 8-2 in conference play. Their only losses this year: Virginia, Wake Forest in conference play, Duke in the kickoff weekend, Harvard and Columbia. I don't see a bad loss on that resume. And by the way, they've played all of those teams pretty competitively as well. The 4-0 loss to Duke kickoff weekend might be the one exception, but again, kickoff weekend, you can throw that out now that we're in April. The big note has been Joseph Wyand. Braden Schick, the junior, who has just elevated his game and is now, again, I think he's like 14-2 or 14-3 overall at the 1 and 2 spots. Obviously, wherever you're putting Catry, his serve, his +1 aggression can just keep him in a match. And then, again, it's the depth as you move down the lineup. Von Sambeek, Stahaley, the fact that you saw I'm blank. Damian Sylvester, who's been around for a while and has those weapons. He's now playing at 5. He's the one who earns the 3-set clinch over Florida State's Dos Karpenshift to clinch that 4-3 win when all eyes turned to that match for a final set after Dos Karpenshift took the second. This team is very experienced. They're very good. I feel like you could make the same pitch for them as you make for about 9 different other teams in this 7 through 20 bracket range, Chris. But again, look at the resume. All you can ask a top 16 team to do, first and foremost, beat who you're supposed to beat. They have done that. Now they go on the road and get a good win over Florida State. Jakob Katush, the freshman, who's been worked in at 6. Thank you for the reminder, Johan. he earns another victory, this time over Bolte of Florida State, and he earned that victory over he pushed, Holden Coons to 3-set when called into the lineup on the road at Winston-Salem as well. It's like, that's a real option. They're pretty good at doubles. Again, they have weapons everywhere. You look at them in the rankings now with their victory. NC State up to 16, Chris Halioris. They are top 16 good. That's my case.
Yeah, they are, and they're good. Yeah, and they're going to get a chance to sort of seal the deal and earn that spot as they finish with North Carolina and Duke. So it's not like they don't have to finish the season with the bottom end of the ACC that won't provide points. They get plenty of opportunity to put some more points on the board here. And if they, I'm going to guess, obviously there's a lot to be played still in the ACC tournament, but if they even come out of the weekend with a split, they will probably earn themselves, a little advantage, if you will, in there. And yeah, they're probably on the inside having to knock themselves out of the top 16 at this point. I will say the one small disadvantage, which makes this week even bigger for them, that they have with Florida State right now is even though they just beat them head to head, they lose the NCAA tiebreaker conversation with them right now because of the record against common opponent or top 50 teams, I think. So it's going to be close, though. Between the last two matches of the regular season and the ACC tournament, that'll all work itself out. But absolutely, they're probably, they ought to be a 15, 16 team.
Well, I think we thought the fun race in the ACC would be for number 2, but then Wake Forest elevated themselves the way that they have, and they made that pretty clear, so the real fun became the 3 spot. And look, Duke, to their credit, beat this NC State team when they played kickoff weekend. Now they're going to play this weekend in what is maybe the most fascinating match of the weekend, and we'll preview that. I know we got a question about Michigan State, Ohio State. We'll get to all of that in the week ahead. They still have that UNC on the horizon, but right now they're third in that ACC race. Like, they have beaten everyone who they are supposed to beat. They go on the road and beat Florida State. And by the way, Florida State right now, you look for them in the rankings. They're 17th, first team out looking in. They still will have a potential at the ACC tournament run to consolidate their top 16 spot. We like to say we call both sides equally here on this show. They have only themselves to blame. They had Virginia, Wake Forest, Duke, North Carolina, and NC State all as home matches, and they go 0-5 in those matches. With all due respect to you, Florida State, if you can't win one of those matches, you probably don't deserve to be top 16 this year. Like, they only have themselves to blame because they had the pathway laid out for them. Even if they just went 2-3, like, it wouldn't be a question. They would be a top 16 team. But to go 0-5, now they have to chase in this ACC tournament. NC State deserves to be chased. Like, they have taken care of business. We went through 15-5. Not a bad loss on their resume. I mean, again, if this team is forced to go to number 1 Ohio State in that Sweet 16, you'd wonder if they do have the experience, the gumption to try their best to block out the Columbus noise. Like, if I'm going to send any team to Columbus and think, do they have a shot? You need a lot of juniors and seniors who have been there before, and even then, good luck. I like this team. I really like this team. Is just, it had to be this year, and they've been flirting around this forever, Chris, and it's nice to see all the pieces line up.
Yeah, here's my question, though. And in all seriousness, nobody wants to go on the road, but depending on what your goals are in terms of how far you want to make it in the NCAA tournament, do you want to be 16, host 2 rounds, and go get your butt kicked in Columbus?
Or
do you want to be 17 and draw potentially, because we don't just go by the seedings and
like
you don't go
12.
to the number 16 site, right?
Yeah.
You could end up at, say, the number 12 site coming out of there with a win.
And playing number 5 Kentucky.
The number 5 team. Yeah. Which would you rather have?
It's a great question. I mean, if I can guarantee I'm not playing Ohio State, Virginia, Texas, or a healthy TCU.
Yeah, that's the battle this year. Is you want to be top 12 because those 13 through 16 spots are brutal.
Does anyone's conference tournament? This is such a tangent, so we'll go back to us here before we move on. But does anyone's conference tournament matter more than Kentucky? And I know Kentucky has Tennessee this weekend. Another
that's the match of the weekend, right?
But
there
it's
in the
just
SEC.
it's just like Kentucky's record's ridiculous, and I know Eli Stevenson's been out for a little bit with injury. Hopefully we get him back so we get the best version of this team come the NCAA tournament. But, like, for a team whose resume, we're going to talk about them in a little bit, but for a team whose resume is as good as it is, again, like, the lack of respect they get, it's just because we didn't get the sample size of the National Indoor Weekend. Like, I didn't get to see it in person. You see it every week on the SEC broadcast. Scoreboards are always tight for that team. But again, we're going to talk about them more in a little bit, I promise. Let's move away from NC State, who again, 4-3 wins over Florida State, Miami, up to number 16 in the ITA computer rankings. Let's move from a top 16 case, Chris, to a team that so impressively has played their way into the NCAA tournament discussion. Has anyone had a more fun 3-week run than the Arkansas Razorbacks, who, of course, not only had, what was it last weekend? I'm blanking on who their 4-3 victory was over, but then come out this weekend. And
Texas A&M.
That was 2 weekends ago. Or that was this weekend. I'm saying 2 weekends ago. They had another big one last weekend, right? I forget who they beat. Was it Auburn? I want to say they beat 4-3 at home or something like that. Anyways, now 4-3 over A&M, 4-3 over LSU, 4-1 over Rice. You look for this Arkansas team who was on the outside of the NCAA tournament bubble. They are now finding themselves all the way up, Chris, to number 34. Not like 39, not like 41. They're up to 34 after their wins over LSU and A&M and Rice. I think you have to point it as another ranked win this past weekend. You get to see them each and every weekend. You got to call this Texas A&M match, Chris. Talk to me about this run this Arkansas team has been on.
I mean, yeah, it's a very dangerous team. I've loved watching the lefty Cajun play at 6 all year. Just a tough 6. And nobody wants to play these guys. And you definitely don't want to go on the road to Arkansas and have to face that team. But heck, this weekend with A&M, they did it in College Station, which was just unbelievable. Every year we talk about how Arkansas does this at home. It's a tough place to play, but they came out and look, they lost the doubles point, and then I think it was 5 first sets. I'd have to go back and look, but I mean, they were, it wasn't a match until it was. And then all of a sudden, Arkansas came roaring back. But I mean, guys like Planellis and Stefano Sava has stepped up recently, and Cajun, they're all playing well and nobody's giving up.
And how about the ending of that LSU match? That third set breaker, that was what, like 9-all. Both guys have match points. I forget who the little lefty was for LSU, but just grinding away as Sava's taking these big swings. And God, was that match. And by the way, the last 4 matches for Arkansas who are
Sassone, I think.
Yeah, who are now 17-9 overall. 4-3 loss to Kentucky, 4-3 win over Auburn, 4-3 win over A&M, 4-3 win over LSU, now 4-1 win over Rice as well. That's how you play your way into the NCAA tournament. And by the way, they still have Florida, Mississippi State coming to Fayetteville this weekend. Again, like, shout out to Arkansas. And it gets me to my regular question here as it relates to the SEC, Chris Halioris. Are all 13 getting in? Like, Vanderbilt's made a push. Arkansas's made a push. Is it just Ole Miss right now on the outside looking in?
Well, yeah, they're not all getting in unless Ole Miss wins the SEC tournament.
Even then, would they be under 500, or does that supersede the 500?
Doesn't matter.
rule?
If you win your conference tournament, you're in.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, but other than that, right now, the other 12 teams are all inside the cut line.
It's crazy.
Which is, that's amazing to think about. There are a few, there's a few interesting cases in there where now Georgia put some extra matches on the schedule to make sure they hit 500. South Carolina has a little work to do, but they've got a couple doubleheaders coming to make sure they hit 500. But it's I mean, look, the team that's really on the biggest slide, even though they're not the last one in at the moment, is LSU. They're 1-9, I think, in the SEC. And Vanderbilt sits below them, but that's those are the last 2 teams in right now, but they are both in. Vanderbilt's just very, very precariously on that bubble, though. It looks like this year the number is going to be a little higher than normal due to the number of non-Power 5 teams that are inside the cut line, sort of pushing the at-large bids down to where it looks like that line might be 45 or 46 this year, which would at the moment that would get both of them in. But I mean, huge weekend for both teams to put themselves in position between, Arkansas, like you said, Arkansas, up into the mid 30s now is unbelievable. But yeah, I think there's a good chance that they all get in, because somebody's good. I mean, look, in the SEC with 13 teams, they go to the conference tournament. 12 and 13 have to play effectively the play-in match. So if you beat Ole Miss, and that's a big if, you're still going to get decent points out of a win there. You're almost behooved to be 12th than you are 11th, because you get to pick up one more win to make your case for the tournament, because that Ole Miss win would be a counter. And then, an opportunity after that. You start with the 11 and 12 are going to get 5 and 6 in the second round. And look, everything after 4, it's been a crapshoot in the SEC this year. After those top 4 teams, they're beatable.
Yeah.
They're all beatable. So yeah, there's plenty of chances out there for the Vandy's and the LSU's to make sure that they get in.
You got to give credit to Kentucky, who's run the gauntlet undefeated thus far, but like everyone's played them 4-2 or 4-3, and every team feels like they had a chance coming out of that match. Everything's been tight 4-2s, 4-1s that are closer than the scoreboards predict. On the A&M side of things, Chris Halioris, they drop a couple of matches here now, right? Oklahoma, Arkansas, they've been without not Parego, but no, without Parego, not
It was
Ruff.
Parego,
Yeah,
yeah.
without Parego for these past couple of matches as well. You hitting a panic button at all, or a little less? Again, 4-3 loss. Like, it's not as though they've gotten blown out in either of those matches. And given the wins they racked up early in the season, A&M's feeling pretty good probably about their top 16 resume. They come out of this weekend, even with the losses, still at 11. Like, they should be fine, right?
I mean, should be, but
But
look,
this knocks them out of top 8.
oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, barring something miraculous happening in the SEC tournament, because there are matches there, but in all likelihood,
They have to
yes,
win it.
they're out of. Yeah, I mean, they'd probably have to go through and pick up like a Tennessee win and a Kentucky win, right,
Yeah.
to get a couple top 10 wins to get themselves back in it. But I'm not panicked, but I am slightly concerned. That's usually a team that's very, very deep. So when they're missing a guy, you can play whatever you want at 6. I did not talk to them this week, so I did not get the rationale behind it. But when you see a new guy that has not played much all season coming in to play 6 against Arkansas, that's where I started to get concerned. And I don't know, was it just, hey, we took the doubles point, we're supposed to win, we're at home, we feel pretty good, we're going to give the guy a chance, and all of a sudden it gets close? And if so, that's on the coaches. But if not, and they're that banged up, then yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. Obviously, we know Parego's out, but
Yeah.
they've got more guys than that. So if that's really how banged up they are, yeah, I'm definitely concerned.
Final note here: bigger win for Arkansas, the fact that they're now in the top 35, or the fact that Calipari's going from Kentucky to their basketball program?
I mean, anytime you do anything against Kentucky, you win hands down. So it's definitely Calipari.
Where do you live?
Sorry, Jay. No one cares about what you're doing. It's all about Coach Cal right now.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, I mean, we can leave that there. That's good enough for me. All right, let's move on to the Ivy League, Chris Halioris, because I don't know what to make sense of the Ivy League at this point. Another big weekend of results for us to take note of. And by the way, right now, there are 4 top 30 Ivy League teams, led, of course, by number 10 Columbia, who had a big bounce-back weekend after dropping the match to Cornell. They get 4-0 wins over Penn and Princeton. Princeton, by the way, up to number 30 in the ITA rankings. They get up to number 24 in the ITA rankings, as they get a 4-1 win over now number 30 Cornell. Cornell, a 4-0 win over Penn. Harvard, 5-2 win over Yale. Again, right now, you look at the ITA rankings, Columbia's 10, Harvard's 13, Princeton 24, Cornell sitting at 30. Chris, talk to me your thoughts right now when you think Ivy League tennis. What comes to mind?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just that midway through the season, I thought for sure we had 1 top 8 and a chance for 2, and it just has seemed to get away. And, I root a little bit for what I'll call the underdogs, right? The non-power 5s, to get those top 8 hosting spots. And and just upset the apple cart a little. But it's been a great year for the Ivy League. Like you said, 4 top 30 teams. Princeton has had an outstanding year. They don't quite, I think Cornell has got a little bit of the name factor with Popaway
Mm-hmm.
solid all the way through the lineup. But yeah, it's been fantastic. The other thing I sort of wish we had seen was I wish that Coach Bonfiglio had gotten the Quakers to be just right up there on the bubble, at least fighting to get in the tournament to try to get 5 in. But it's you know as much as I'm trying to even think what the hell conference it was because UCF left. What was it?
The
The American
AAC.
Athletic.
Yeah.
Somebody that used to try to call themselves part of the Power Six. UCF used to say the Power Six. I'm sorry, there's no Power Six, and if there was, the Ivy League in tennis would be the 6th, not the AAC. But yeah, that was the next best, and then UCF left the conference for a Power Five.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, it's been a fantastic year for the Ivy League, and I'm really looking forward to the finish to that conference season just to see what happens there, and then B what I still think we're going to get 2 top 16 hosts out of the Ivy League, which I'm not sure we've had that in a long time.
No, you look right now at the resumes. Cornell 17-3, and again, who are the losses to? They lost to Harvard at the National Indoor Championships, but then bounced back with wins over Alabama and Duke. By the way, they have wins over NC State, Tennessee early in the season, but they've lost to Wake Forest, they've lost to Harvard, and they lost the match at Cornell. That's it. 17-3 resume for Harvard. 17-5 overall. They've won 4 in a row. They're 11-0 at home. Again, there was the Memphis loss early in the season. There have been some weird ones out west, but for the most part, this Harvard team has taken care of business. Obviously, they've got the massive matchup coming up Sunday, but both matches, Saturday, Sunday, they are at Cornell, at Columbia, so a big road trip to New York coming up for the Crimson. Princeton's 19-6. There's a loss to Tulsa in there, Oklahoma State, but again, nothing reprehensible. Columbia 15-5 overall on the year. They all deserve to clearly get into the NCAA tournament, and again, I think the big thing for Columbia after losing to Cornell, not just to win those matches, but to win them 4-0 in the fashion that they did. And again, I still think this is the deepest team 1 through 6 of the group. I probably still like Williams, Von der Schulenberg, Malofsky, and Jacek's my favorite top 4 and combination pathway of any of the teams. But there's just a lot of talent across the board in the Ivy League, and it speaks to the rise of Ivy League tennis that there are 4 top 30 teams right now, and it's April 10th. And I guess, Chris, the problem is, more than anything right now, this is where you get angry for not playing a conference tournament. Because I guess if there was an Ivy League conference tournament, one of these, if it's Harvard or Columbia who wins, they probably end up top 8, right?
Yeah, I've had this conversation even with some of the coaches every year that, even if the conference refuses to play a conference tournament, the teams should just get together and play one because forget the quote unquote conference tournament title or whatever you want to call it. It's the opportunity to play matches and get points because that they desperately need someone. Whoever wins that Columbia Harvard match is either going to be, on the outside looking in or very, or just inside or very close on the outside. And one more chance, if you got 2 wins over that team coming down the stretch, you probably would be in. And yeah, that's the unfortunate part with no Ivy League conference tournament here is they really have to stack the early season because of the fact that there's no conference tournament.
Yeah, and again, it's what makes this weekend's Harvard at Cornell, at Columbia trip that much more fascinating. And so certainly we will keep our eyes on all things Ivy League tennis coming up this weekend. Chris, let's do a little quick inner circle watch here from week 13. 3 teams that I thought all looked impressive: Tennessee, Wake Forest, and Texas, who all continue to take care of business. Let's start with Wake Forest, in particular, who now 24-4. Overall on the year. They've won 14 consecutive matches, 4-2 over Miami, 5-2 over Florida State. Maroney goes from handing ACC his first loss of the season in straight sets at 1 against Florida State on Friday to losing to Pratt of Miami the next day. But, again, even after getting off to slow starts in both the Miami Florida State matches, Luca Pau, Holden Coons, they're so good at the bottom of the lineup. I think Coons is like 19. I think Coons is 19-2. Excuse me, Pau is 19-2, and Coons is now 19-3 or 20-3. Oh, excuse me. Coons is 19-3. Pau is 20-2. Lock those stats in, Chris Halioris, coming out of this past weekend. And again, if you're looking for locks, bottom of the lineup, it feels like they feel as confident in those two spots as anyone. They throw a couple of lefties, by the way, at you as well. Again, between Maroney, Taki, Suresh, Thompson, and doubles, they feel like they can always find 2 more points amongst those 5 shots. Like, yeah, this team has been a little match calculus dependent, but more than anyone, they know they're winning 5 and 6. Most of the time, they win doubles as well. Suresh and Coons are the number 1 team in the country, so they feel like they're up 2.5-0. How big is the gap? I guess, are they 5th on your list? Are they the first team out of that top 4? They would be the first ones you turn to?
I mean, I don't know. I sort of have a log jam there right now
Yeah.
with Kentucky, Wake, Tennessee, and even Arizona. I mean, those teams to me are all sitting right there. But which, by the way, that was ACC's second loss of the season. Andres Martin beat him right after I got done hyping him for being the guy. Made me regret it
Sure.
instantly. But yeah, I think Wake is they could be that first team out. I'm still, I can make arguments against every one of them for different reasons. So but every single one of them on their best day could step up and beat any one of those top 4 teams.
Yeah, I just, again, to have that 5, like, I do feel like Coons and Maroney, I like them as much as the 5 and 6 on any of those top 4s. Like, certainly Texas continues to play around with
Luca Powell,
Harper.
you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Coons and Powell. Thank you. Texas continues to play around with Brown and Harper and Braswell and Waldeeb. Again, not Graziani, excuse me, Kiefer and Dahlberg continue to get better, as you'd expect with the shift outdoors. But I think Powell and Coons can certainly hang with them at those 5 and 6 spots. Even, again, whomever is 5 and 6 for the Buckeyes on any given day, I feel like Powell and Coons probably enter as the favorites in both of those matches, barring it being Alex Bernard at that number 5 spot. We'll see where he ends up as we move outdoors.
No one's favorite over Bernard.
Yeah, never. 6 Alex Bernards are favored to win the tournament, as we've established here at this podcast. They're really good. And again, Suresh, if he's serving well, you're not going to beat him. So right there, that's 3. They just have such a clear calculus that's why they're 5th on that list to me. And if TCU's not healthy, they might even elevate to 4th on that list because, again, I get to see Powell and Coons every week, and they are that consistent. And it's just something about these lefties down low, Chris Halioris. Those two, Bernie, the force is strong here in this 2024 season. What about Texas? Where are you with the Longhorns right now? 18-3 overall. They had a pretty good weekend. They knock off Oklahoma, now a top 10 team, 4-1. Oklahoma State 6-1. I think what was most impressive for me is how they went about winning that Oklahoma match. Not only do they take the doubles point in that one on the road, but again, to get a straight set win 2-1 from GA at 3, a straight set win 3-4 from Braswell, Harper at 2-5. Again, Micah Braswell isn't losing matches, just period. Overall this year, Spiz was up on now a top 10 player in the country in Alex Martinez. PY was up a set as well. I know Mandlik beat Lucas Brown, but we've talked about Mark Mandlik at 6 for Oklahoma. Still, doubles, 3 straight set wins on the road against a top 10 team. That's what an inner circle team does. And yet, Chris, I still think I'd argue I haven't seen the best from Texas yet this year. Do you think have we seen their peak yet?
Oh, we haven't seen their peak, and I think that's what's the most intriguing about them. And I really wish, and I don't want the hate mail for this, but I wish there were Vegas betting lines on college sports, because I would venture to guess that if we took those top 4 teams and there was a serious, future line on winning the NCAA tournament, I don't have any doubts that Texas might actually be the favorite right now. Like, Ohio State is
such
clearly
a good question.
Ohio State's clearly got the respect because of where they're at, but at the same time, it's the whole we get outdoors in the NCAA tournament every year. Virginia just, I mean, they're going to be there. TCU would clearly be fourth in the list right now just due to health reasons.
Yeah.
And we know what's on the roster for Texas. They might legit have the most respect.
The thing is, the Vegas algorithm would point to Virginia. And Virginia would be the Denver Nuggets of this discussion, where it's like they didn't care about February. They never cared about February, and they played Ohio State as close as anyone still at that national indoors with an underhand serving on Iñaki Montez. But Ohio State's lost once. Texas has refound some swagger, and yet again, I still don't think we've seen them play that peak match, although it was close to it, watching them beat Oklahoma so comprehensively at 1-5. The problem is you still have questions for Texas. Like, who is their six? What is their best doubles lineup? It does feel like Spiz and Waldeb at 1 is working, and allowing Micah and Cleve to play 3 is working, and just finding that rhythm is working. GA gets better and better with every passing match, starting to look like the superstar we thought he might be in his freshman season. They are such an intriguing team because, again, Virginia, we saw their ceilings the last 2 years at the NCAA tournament. We know how good Ohio State could be. We saw that at the National Indoors this year. We saw it at NCAAs last year. Texas is the team in this group. We saw TCU ceiling in that National Indoor Final. They were up 3-2 with 2 matches to play on Ohio State. Texas is the one team that, they beat Ohio State, but it was so early in the outdoor season for the Buckeyes. Like, they're just the one team. I want to see them win the Big 12 tournament because then you're right. Like, they probably would enter, if not the best odds, second best odds probably at that point, entering the NCAA tournament. I don't know. It's fascinating. Like, I haven't seen their peak yet, and I want to know what it is. I hope we're running out of time.
If you're Texas, who right now is sitting at 4, and in the live rankings, Virginia's actually now up to 2. If you're Texas at 4, do you want to hold pat and play Ohio State, or do you want to move up and play Virginia in the semis? Who do you want in the semis? Like, of course they're going to tell you we don't care. We're going to play whoever comes.
I'm really happy it's not TCU because those two teams shouldn't play again. Like, spread out the conference. I like that. Who would you rather play? Can I say neither? Is that fair? The answer is Arizona or
the problem is Texas has got to do a little work because if Kentucky beats Tennessee this weekend, they're back up potentially in the top 4.
I really want to. The thing is, I really want to be 3. That's the big thing, is I don't want to have to play whoever 5 is right away, whether it's Wake Forest or Kentucky, although, again, them sitting there at 5 and 6. Or, Chris, what about Tennessee? We haven't talked about them in this ilk of the conversation. They're 21-4 overall. They've won 6 in a row. They're 10-1. 10-1 in conference play. And again, their one loss was a heartbreaker that they lost 5-2 in College Station to A&M. Like, you look at their stats from this season, Monday's been exceptional at the top spot, 20-2 in his final year at the job. Mitsui clearly has taken another leap, so much more comfortable at the top of the lineup than he was last season. He's 18-4 overall on the year. Pyjonka, there was some mid-season regression, but he's found it back a little bit, 13-6. Chris Lee, now that we've moved outdoors, 14-5. Talk about a breakout star. Diaz, 13-5, and continues to abide by the Chris Halioris rule of playing him higher in the lineup. Don't worry, I beat you to saying it, so you didn't have to say it because, as you know, against a push, that's not what Angel Diaz wants to be doing. He wants to be slapping balls from the baseline. You have taught me that, Professor. That much I am certain of. I mean, again, but what about the doubles? Like, Monday and Diaz are 13-4. Mitsui and Pyjonka, 14-1. That's the sneaky part. Like, double, and again, you never want your recipe to be doubles 1-2 because everyone in the final stage is good at doubles, good at 1, good at 2. But this team has been as good as anyone at those positions, and they continue to stay feisty and have, like, Lee, Diaz, real options, middle of the lineup. I wouldn't put them in the inner circle yet. I see them knocking on the door. But if they beat Kentucky, do they belong in the inner circle?
I don't know if I'd put them in the inner circle. I've said all year I think they're a team that could win it, but not nearly. If I was putting percentages on it, no, I'm not giving them nearly the percentage I'm going to give the top 4 teams, and that's only TCU if they're healthy. But but certainly very, very dangerous, if you will. The more intriguing part to me over what they've done this year, it, especially coming down to the end of the season here, is we've seen some different lineups. Like we saw Nicholas Cobalt pop in one week, and he popped in at the number 4 spot, which I've not asked for or seen. I think the SEC may be one of the few conferences that does it. They still have to submit lineups every week ahead of time on like Tuesday, and coaches get to protest. For him to play there, they've obviously been submitting him and just pulling him every time, but he popped in. Then we've seen Newton get some playing time. We're seeing a whole bunch of guys get playing time to the point where I'm not positive I know who the 6 are coming to the NCAA tournament, which I think is intriguing. The good thing for them is they've all played well. When Cobalt played, he looked great. Newton's played well. I mean, they're just probably giving guys looks to see if they need them, how who's going to get the shot. But they look really good. As you said, the doubles is sort of that's the bonus for them. Is they're really, really good at doubles. And you just can't afford to give away a point to them when you got Monday and Mitsui coming at you at 1-2.
Yeah, really well said. Oh, all right, we got a bunch of matches still to cover, a week ahead, some rankings, and some fun to have. So we're going to rapid fire through these next things a little bit more quickly. Again, that's your Inner Circle Watch. Chris, let's talk about some weekends people should know about, and we'll move through them here quickly. Let's start with Georgia Tech. I really like this team. 16-6 overall, 12-1 at home, 6-4 in conference play. This past weekend they go on the road, 4-3 win over Notre Dame, where they dropped the doubles point. That was like a 4-hour match. 4-2 win over Louisville as well. You look at the team rankings now. Georgia Tech up to number 29 there. Martin, McDaniel, Sachdev, like the freshman whose name I'm blanking on, but Richard Biagiotti, like who has some serious weapons. This team's good, and they're more experienced than you think.
Yeah, there's no doubt they're going to be a dangerous. They're really there's no such thing necessarily as a 2 seed or a 3 seed anymore because it's all regionalized. But they are basically a 2 seed, and it's not with what they've got. Like I said, there's a bunch of teams that are sort of like that, like the Arizona States of the world, where you're looking at the top 2 or 3 guys in the lineup where, man, those 3 guys can beat anybody. So if you manage to spot them doubles, knowing what they have in singles, you're in trouble, and you just absolutely have to beat them at the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah, again, really solid team though, top to bottom. Again, we say we call it straight here, so these are a little glass half empty, but you just got to know about them. Louisville, they probably played themselves out of the NCAA tournament. 2 home matches, losses, Georgia Tech, Clemson, 4-2, 4-love respectively. Clemson was excellent on Sunday, but now they're 13-13 overall. Just Boston College left on the regular season schedule. Barring a massive ACC tournament run, Louisville's in a tough spot.
Yeah, I mean they don't have a problem with the 500 record because they're going to win the Boston College match, and the worst thing they could do is lose first round in the ACC tournament. They're still 500, but yeah, they're sitting at that right around that bubble number. They're not going to get any help from a Boston College win. They're going to get hurt if they lose early in the ACC, so they've got to pick up 1 or 2 wins probably in the ACC tournament. And the way they finished the season, losing 4-0 to Clemson at home, just not a good look for them right now. So not enthused, but at the same time, they just, they gotta take their shot. They gotta forget what happened and say, look, we come out and win a match, we're in.
Yeah, well said. Next team up, South Carolina, 13-12 now overall in the year. They lose a couple of heartbreakers. You saw them 4-3 to Kentucky, 4-3 to Vanderbilt. Chris, 13-12 overall. They've played 10 4-3 matches out of their 25 total. Josh Goffey has a full head of hair. Not only do I remain impressed by his coaching ability, but man, did he win the genetic lottery to go through that sort of stress and still look that good. It was a tough weekend for the Gamecocks. What'd you see?
I didn't really get to see the Kentucky match, but I saw all of the Vanderbilt match, and how Goffey has a full head of hair, how Goffey has the patience to sit through the last hour and a half of the match on court 6 is beyond me. Poor Carter Morgan, I don't know. I was assuming it was cramps. Guy couldn't move hardly. And and it was tough for Copeland from Vandy to play him. It's always hard playing somebody that's hurt, cramping, whatever, because you're trying not to change your game and get lured into I just need to make him run a lot and I'm gonna win, and then you start missing. But yeah, that was just a brutal match for them. But it seems to cut whatever so it's that this week, but every week it's a different story of why it's 4-3 in the last match on in a thriller for them. And it's been like that all year. It's been a rough year. Look, let's be honest, but they're still there. They're still going to be in the NCAA tournament. They still have an SEC tournament to go, and they're still as dangerous as ever. They still play good doubles.
Yeah.
You still got Toby Samuel at the top of the lineup, and then a bunch of guys that are fighting. Story has been off and on playing well. They can win matches, but they're not coming out to blow anybody out 4-0. They're going to be playing those 4-3 matches all day.
That's the best part. Sometimes it's Sar, sometimes it's Darabagi, sometimes it's Morgan. It's always something different. Again, 10 4-3 matches for the Gamecocks, drop 2 tough ones. Big win for Vanderbilt, as again they continue to try and make a push into the NCAA tournament. They're up to number 44 in the most recent computer rankings. This one we can do particularly quick. Season of Hell award belongs to USC. They drop an 8th straight. Again, they're not healthy. It's just, again, Dostanic, Waitman. Every week it's someone new. Tough ones, 4-3 to Oregon, 4-2 to Washington. I don't know if there's 8 matches left on the schedule. Again, it's just a year from hell.
The only way they make the tournament is if they win the Pac-12, right? Because they're way under 500. Look, they only played 5. You talked about it. They're banged up. They only played 5 guys against Washington.
Yeah.
Iakobenko didn't even play. He did come back to play in the Oregon match that they ended up losing 4-3. But yeah, it's been a rough year. They are just not healthy, and they don't have a deep enough roster. And that's always a catch-22. Some people might want to go out and hang a coach for saying you don't have enough guys. And on the other hand, a lot of people don't want to carry 10, 12 guys because then nobody plays and you got to split scholarships up. So, it's a tough one, but it's just been one of those years where just everything from the health perspective has gone wrong for them. And they'll look to turn it around. They've still got to play a Pac-12 though, It'll be interesting to see what they've got.
Yeah.
They did cancel the match I saw, which was an interesting one. They had a match scheduled, I think it was today, maybe, with Pacific, and that one got canceled. So
Pacific's got to be bummed. They're like, oh, we need that.
Send
us your best 4. We'll take the 2-0 lead.
Yeah. That was and I talked to Coach Goodman about that match. It was I kind of like our chances, but obviously it's still USC. So, like, if they want to play, we play. If they don't want to play, we don't. We don't know if it's good or bad.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Last but not least, just an update. And I talked to him on the Cracked Interviews podcast. You can go hear my conversation with Denver men's tennis head coach Drew Eberly today. 19-0. 19-0 moves Denver, wins over Omaha at Drake. Regular season finales coming up this weekend at home. Yeah, 19-0. Again, the last team I can remember, Chris, entering the NCAA tournament undefeated. Let's see. What's your memory say? Top of brain. Who do you go with?
I'm just trying to think if it's a Power 5 or if it's going to be if it's going to be a Denver of the world.
So this is what I thought you might know if there was a Denver of the world who I don't remember. And again, in the chat, let us know if you can
like
think of
North Carolina A&T or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy. The last undefeated champions we had, calendar to calendar. The first national champions in UVA history. Still my favorite team.
It's got to be Virginia.
Yeah, I can still tell you in the singles in the lineup of the in the final what the lineup was. And again, do you want to do this? Jameer Jenkins 1, Damajan 2, Frank 3. They had different options. Sometimes it would be Mitchell Frank, sometimes Ryan Shane, sometimes it would be Justin Shane. On championship Sunday against UCLA, they went Steislinger 4, Justin Shane 5, Julian Irwin 6. Ultimately, Shane, a big win over next year's number 1 player in the country. He loses in straight sets, the quickest match possible, and then the next fall, Klay Thompson's the number 1 player in the country for UCLA. And it's just like, you got to love when those things happen. Marcos beating Alex Damajan in that final is when I knew he would be a top 100 player. Nevertheless, that's your quick tangent and history lesson. That's the last undefeated team I can remember entering the NCAA tournament, that 2013 Virginia men's team. Denver on pace to do that very same thing, though, so far.
Did you ask Coach Eberle what happens if they don't win the conference tournament?
I mean, no, because I didn't want to entertain that thought. I already called
right
him 40.
They're right there on the bubble if they don't. But
I already called him 40, and he's not, and that's a major faux pas in this industry. I would have hung up on me right away, and so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to press the issue any further. 19-0 overall, and thank you to Coach Eberle for joining us. You can go hear his conversation on the Cracked Interviews podcast today. Chris, last but not least here, as we look through these final results, I'm going to give them to you quickly. You just tell me what you think. Arizona beats Arizona State 4-2. Quick, rapid reaction.
Should have happened. Yeah.
I agree. Good bounce back after Stanford. Duke beats UNC 5-2.
I mean, probably should have happened, but much, much needed for them to prove to themselves they deserve to be top 16.
I'm going to go a step further. Since the start of conference season, Duke has looked like a top 16 team. And Pedro Rodines is playing good tennis again. Oklahoma State 4-2 over Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, a little surprising. Baylor's just sort of tailed off here. They looked really good at the start of the year, played some really good matches with top teams, and now it's sort of tailed off. But they're still, I mean, they're going to be a tournament team, so they still get their opportunity.
Baylor a year away, Oklahoma State, this is the year they had to peak. Garcia, Zink, Beckroft, all in their final year. And again, that was senior day for Zink to get the clinch over Paralek. A cool moment when a senior can clinch on senior day at home. So shout out to Oklahoma State. That's a good win. Again, both UNC Baylor, they're not going to be top 16 seeds. They're not going to be, I don't know if they'll be 2 or 3 seeds again regional. It's all a little bit different now. Can you imagine if they're the 3rd seed, though, in your region, as both of them rankings-wise, might just float into, certainly,
Yeah, Baylor's in 3 seed range. They're floating down high 30s right now.
That is a brutal 3 seed.
Yeah, that's a team with tons of talent that just hasn't put it. I mean, they didn't play a consistent lineup for 6 weeks due to guys being out, and
if you're a top seed, you actually sneaky would love Baylor as your number 3 seed, because then day one's going 3.5 hours, and you get whoever is still wounded but standing in the regional final. And so actually maybe you'd love to have them. By the way, thank you, Jeff McMillan, telling us Louisville lost to Notre Dame today, so their slide continues as well. That's a tough one. Probably knocks them out. Again, last but not least, and I get to call their match tomorrow against TCU, so I'm really excited to see the battle of the 3-letter acronyms. SMU, 4-0 over Memphis. Here's what I'm saying. I've gotten to watch this team now in person via broadcast a couple of times. We know what Trevor Svida is at 1. Hell, we know what Adam Neff and his weapons can be at 2 when he plays his best. But it's beyond that. It's Crawl. It's really, Barton at 6. Jerry Barton, the transfer from Furman. He's really good. Rock solid at this 6 spot. This team's got real depth. I was waiting for a win like that from them. That was a statement win, 4-0 over Memphis. You look for SMU now in the rankings. Again, they're getting into the tournament. They're 40 right now, so still in the bubble. But I am fascinated by their matchup tomorrow against TCU, because even if fully healthy, of course you'd lean TCU. But SMU's got some dogs to push them everywhere, and 5 and 6 in particular. I'm really looking forward to seeing how SMU competes. Doubles, I'm not there, but singles for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting match. I think, unfortunately for them, it's just, I mean, even without the top guys, TCU's probably deeper. But boy, if Fernley's not in there, Svida can obviously battle with anybody. And then Neff, Crawl, they're gonna have their chances. I don't know. They're gonna have to battle at the bottom of the lineup. If the guys like Barton down there can't manage to get a point, they're not going to win it by getting doubles 1, 2, 3. That's just not going to be the recipe.
Yeah, no. Again, it was a really big win for the Mustangs. They've got a big one coming up against TCU now tomorrow. A match we'll have for you 6 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN Plus. I'm trying to keep this show under 3 hours. And so, again, there are a lot of results left on the cutting board. We went 7 points wide here before we went to other results. But, again, things left on the cutting board that feel notable. Mississippi State, 4-2 over Auburn. Auburn, 4-3 over Bama. Florida, 4-3 over Vanderbilt. Georgia not only beating Ole Miss, but the Southern Miss win, to your point, as they try to get over that 500 rule threshold. An undefeated weekend for UCLA. Michigan gets a much-needed win over Indiana to just be like, nope, we're getting into the NCAA tournament this year for sure. Big win for Charlotte, 4-3 over Old Dominion. Eastern Kentucky, 5-2 over Stetson. My boys at NJIT were back, 4-2 win over Delaware, so welcome back to the conversation, fellas. Again, there's a lot of good stuff on that board, Chris Halioris. Any final thoughts on Week 13?
Oh, we've pretty much covered it. I'm looking forward to the last weekend of SEC conference play, and you've got the ACC on the books for the weekend. So let's get the last conference weekends in.
Absolutely. Well, with the conclusion of Week 13, Chris Halioris, we got to offer our new rankings to the people out there. And for what it's worth, you compare our Week 13 rankings to the Week 13 rankings in the ITA computer side of things. Not that many differences. In fact, you look at the top 10 teams overall, we have the exact same top 10, albeit in a slightly different order. We have Ohio State 1, Virginia 2, Texas 3, and TCU for the current ITA rankings have Ohio State 1, TCU back up to 2, Virginia at 3, and Texas currently at 4. After that, we go Wake Forest 5, Kentucky 6, Arizona 7, Tennessee 8, Columbia 9, and Oklahoma 10. Again, exact same teams as the ITA, just slightly different order on the computer side of things. Kentucky 5, Tennessee 6, Wake Forest 7, and Arizona 8. Your first two teams out of top 8 seeding. Oklahoma at 9, Columbia currently at number 10. Hard to disagree with it directionally, and I would agree. A Wake Forest, as I alluded to earlier, they're still my number 5 team. I did move. I still have Kentucky at that number 6 spot. I believe I have Tennessee now. Do I have them above Arizona? Let me look at my own rankings. I do not. I have Arizona 7 still, Tennessee 8, Columbia 9, and Oklahoma 10. So these are my rankings exactly. Chris Halioris. Other than I think I have TCU above Texas because Texas's win over TCU wasn't full strength. I got no issue with it. What say you?
No, I don't. I don't have any issue with it at all either. I mean, honestly, look, right now, only because I have a few health concerns with TCU, I've actually got in the rankings. I put Wake ahead of them. I had Wake 4 and TCU 5. And then Arizona, followed by the trio of SEC, actually a quadruple of SEC teams in Kentucky, Tennessee, A&M, and Mississippi State. But directionally, I think that's it's going to be a battle, and I think those top 8 to 12 teams are all we're all gonna have the same list.
Our rankings are very much reflective, and this is why it's good both of us are in here, of our broadcasting schedule. Your 7 through 10, Kentucky, Tennessee, A&M, Mississippi State. I go 11 Duke, 12 NC State, and again I have Wake Forest, UVA a little bit higher because I see them more frequently. But yeah, again, we're fighting. I have 6 locks. I think Ohio State, Virginia, Texas, TCU, Wake Forest, Arizona, they should all be locks for top 8 seeds in my mind. I also think the SEC winner, and in particular the winner of Kentucky, Tennessee this weekend, they're my 7th lock. We're really arguing and fighting for that 8th spot, in my mind, Chris Halioris in the seeding. Now, again, rankings-wise, the margins are much thinner than that, so there's much more fluidity of movement available. But in my mind, I feel pretty good about my top 7, and it's really that 8th spot. Is it Columbia? Is it Oklahoma? Is it a second SEC team? That's the question up for grabs for me.
I think Kentucky and Tennessee are both in.
Yeah.
So
you think we're locked?
I mean, I won't say they're locked, but there is right now, like, just in looking at and I'm not looking at the current points, but looking at already the live rankings for next week, there's a pretty big gap after number 7. And that 7th is actually Wake Forest.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty large gap there to be overcome. And I just don't know, what's on the schedule for 2 of, sure, any one of those can get up in there, but for Kentucky and Tennessee to both get, or for one of them to get knocked out, two teams would have to join the party in there. And I just don't know how much there is on this, unless Oklahoma knocks off a Texas or a TCU. Um, I don't know that they get there unless A&M knocks off Kentucky or Tennessee. They're not getting there. Columbia, obviously, it's mandatory they beat Harvard. Is that enough? I don't know. I just think it's going to be very difficult to get one of those two SEC teams out. I think, barring a loss to someone other than each other, they're probably both in.
Yeah, well, I know this is the calculation you were wondering about, Chris Halioris, and all of our listeners were wondering about at home. So before we move on from the rankings, just for those of you curious right now about what would it take, and again, this is the scenario probably on the top of minds of everyone out there in the college tennis universe. If Michigan beats Ohio State this weekend, if they beat Michigan State at home and they beat Ohio State again in the Big Ten Conference tournament, they still have a pathway to the top 16. So mathematically, they haven't been eliminated either yet, Chris Halioris. And in that vein, let's get to the week ahead because, again, you look at the matches on the horizon.
On that note.
Oh, no. Oh, no. He's put it on. You just want to get me in trouble. He's wearing it, not me, folks. Again, the only hats I have within my vicinity are the NCAA tournament hats. But, yeah, Chris puts on the Michigan cap because it's a big weekend for Wolverine fans. And, honestly, Michigan State, Michigan, Saturday, Sunday at Ohio State. Given it's been a while since we've seen the Buckeyes, who have been a number one team in the country now for, I don't know, 12 weeks, 13 weeks consecutively, whatever it's been. They're going to get pushed at home in Columbus by two teams who also entered this weekend undefeated in conference play for what it's worth. And obviously that Michigan State-Ohio State match in particular, we've already seen the Buckeyes beat the Wolverines once this year, albeit much closer than the scoreline indicated in Ann Arbor. But, man, this Michigan State-Ohio State match. I mean, again, Barris versus probably Kingsley at 1, Holman versus Boulay, the ups and downs in that match at 2, Thanos versus whomever at 3. Does the trio of Collard and Sheldon and David Say, they've been pretty good throughout the course of this year, but now you get Anthrop, now you get Bernie, now you probably get Cash in one of his last weekends at home as well. You get the energy that the Buckeyes bring in Columbus. It's going to be a sold-out Saturday, Chris Halioris. And then, of course, when Michigan comes to town, it's a sold-out Sunday always in that matchup as well. Talk me through what you expect to see go down at the Ty Tucker Tennis Center this weekend.
I expect to see Ty do the normal thing here and see some crazy doubles lineups that we haven't seen all year. That's what I expect to see. Look, I don't expect them to get I expect a little bit of a push. I don't expect 4-3. It's all down to one court left remaining. I think that they will get a little bit of a test, but all in all, look, it's at Columbus. They're still just better than the other two teams. If they were road matches, maybe it would be a little different. But I think what I'm looking for is to see how comparative and relative to each other look against Ohio State, because that's the match the following weekend for, not only the bragging rights in Michigan, but probably second place in the Big Ten, and a potentially a top 16 berth for Michigan State. That one's going to have all kinds of stuff on the line. So I'll be interested to see sort of where they are. Look, we all know Michigan's banged up. Nino's out. Patorn is back now, but they've played unbelievable given everything that's happened for them this year. The epitome of a team, if you will, at this point. And Michigan State's still young. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I just don't think Ohio State, I expect 4-1, 4-2 in the matches. But, who knows? If anybody's going to give them a big push, I'd love to see those top 3 from Michigan State really give the top 3 a test. I just don't think they can do it down low. but that could be a battle.
My question is also Tracy, Bernie, Anthrop. What's the order if this match is outdoors? Like, do they mix things up a little bit? Also, who is it at 6? Is it Nakashima? Is it Cash? Is it Stearns? Like, what are we going to see at that spot? Again, doubles. I bet we get an Anthrop Luchanik pairing at 1 because we haven't seen that yet this year. So
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
only
We're
so
gonna
many
get something
permutations.
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Or Fuchs and Carpico at that 3 spot. Like, yeah, I'm very excited for all the machination, different looks. I'm excited to see. Yeah, I mean, again, on the Michigan side, look, they still got to land the recruits. Of course they do. But given the injuries and what this roster has looked like at times this year, it's a hell of a coaching job from Sean, Trevor, Max, that staff to get this group to where they are, still undefeated in a conference tournament title, still hypothetical, even though that trip to Columbus is quite the mountain to have to climb. I'm more excited for this Michigan State-Ohio State match, though, than anything, because this is the match Michigan State has wanted all season long. Like, just they want this match against the Buckeyes in Columbus, the top dogs. They've just wanted it to matter. Like, this is the team they've wanted to play in this environment, in this moment, all year long. And when they got tested like this the first time, they passed that test in the most dramatic of fashions. Third set clinch 4-3 over Illinois. Illinois is good. Ohio State's a different monster. And at home, senior day, either this weekend or on the horizon, you're never picking against Ohio State. Only 2 teams have beaten them in the last 15 years at home. One of them made 3 straight NCAA finals. The other won back-to-back national titles and is looking to win their 3rd this year. Buckle the seatbelts. I'm really excited. Again, those are going to be fun matches across the board, Chris. And again, it's a moment Harry, Michigan State has been building towards. So I know Ohio State will be, no one is more keenly aware of that than Ty Tucker and Ohio State. And no one is more looking forward to popping the balloon.
You know what would be just fantastic? Like, I just can't even imagine. I would love to see the reaction. Harry Jaden should walk in with Alex Galley as an assistant coach.
Yeah, you bring in him and whoever from that, Carl Soderlund, who's graduated from that Virginia team.
I mean, like, if you just walk in with that right there, like, Ty would have to be like, what the hell?
Yeah, and even then, you're still probably losing. But at least you've sent a message.
But if you're just trying to get the mental jump, the problem is all the guys on the Ohio State team is like, Alex who? Huh?
I go the other way. And the problem is if you do this, you're actually ceding the point to Ohio State that, yeah, you're in our heads from the start. Just mimic their starting chant from the start. Like, they start bouncing, you start bouncing. And you say, we're in. Like, is this what we're doing today? Because we're ready to do that if that's what we need to do. Like, I guess it will be in my mind forever. On one side of the Columbia Milstein Family Tennis Center, you have Ohio State war chanting. And on the other side, you have Harvard playing short court. Don't be the team playing short court against Ohio State, because then in the minds of every fan in the building, you've already lost. One team's playing a match, the other's preparing for war. Like, you're in Columbus too. I'd come out, maybe find a New Zealander or a Hawaiian, do the haka. Like, just give them something different. Like, I don't know. I'm really excited for this match, because I'll tell you what, I bet Michigan State has something up their sleeve.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll find out again. All right. Hopefully we answered your question from earlier, Nathan, by the way. There's your Michigan State. All right, let's go just real quick. Doubles. Michigan State or Ohio State?
Ohio State.
1.
I'll take Ozon.
Okay, 2.
Ohio State.
3.
Ohio State. It's Tracy.
Okay.
Come on.
4.
It's just Ohio State from there down.
So there you go.
Anthrop, Bernie, and I'm going. You think they're playing outside?
It's been nice. I mean, it's poured today here in Indianapolis, so this was not a good barometer. It's been pretty nice though of late.
Then I go. It's Tracy, Anthrop, Bernie, Nakashima.
But not in that order. Bernie first. Yeah. No,
that's
look,
my order. I'm sticking to it.
All right, fair enough. Chris Halioris is
sandbagging Bernie all year, baby.
All right, there's his pick. Again, some other good weekends here. We're gonna do this one a little longer as well. Tennessee, Kentucky. Now you are calling it, so you can't give me a prediction, but give me a matchup within this match you're most excited for.
Well, they moved Pajanka up last week. I don't know where he'll be, but to me, that's always one of the key matchups for Tennessee, just because outdoors has been a little bit of a struggle for him. And I was really looking forward to the all lefty battle of Pajanka and Loudon.
Yeah.
And Pajanka did move up a spot, but if we get that, I would love to see that battle, or just heck, move him up one more and let him play weeks. I'll take the all lefty battle any way I can get it. But I think the Pajanka match to me is kind of a big swing match uh, for Tennessee, and if they can, they're probably going to be favored in the top two spots. We know Kentucky's been big at the bottom all year. The other thing to watch for is Eli Stevenson going to make it back this weekend? They've been trying to get him healthy and ready, undefeated as a freshman, but now been out for 3 or 4 weeks. Even if he does come back, boy, what a time to get thrust back into your first match in a month. That'll be the things I'm
I
watching.
know Jay's breaking that one down specifically for no ad, no problem. You said it. Tennessee's really good at doubles 1 and 2. Kentucky's really good at 4 through 6. Something's got to give somewhere in that lineup. And again, that's going to be a really fun match. Chris will be covering it on ESPN Plus. Harvard at Cornell and Columbia. Do they go 2-0? What do you see happening this weekend?
It's hard to. I think they go 1-1. It's hard to pick them. I
Yeah.
actually do like them on a neutral site over
Well, they
Columbia.
already beat Columbia at Columbia.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be hard to say they're going back in there and doing it again.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part for me. I honestly like the singles lineup. They're more you covered it well earlier. Probably a little more depth for Columbia. I think a little more strength up top for Harvard. Uh, it's going to be a very interesting match, but I think Columbia, with everything on the line, they're at home. They're trying to play for a top 8. They got to find a way to get it done.
Cooper versus Michael is the best rivalry we don't talk enough about. This is Columbia's Super Bowl. I would be shocked if they lost that one. It's Saturday, Sunday, back to back for Harvard and New York. I'm very excited to see how the Crimson perform this week and excited for each of those. I get Duke and UNC against NC State. Again, if NC State goes 2-0 and protects their home turf, they are a top 16 seed. We cover that team enough, so I think you know what's up there. But how about Stanford? They want to make a top 16 push after they beat Arizona, the Stanford Cardinal, up to number 19. Well, they've got UCLA, USC, the LA road trip coming up this weekend. That UCLA match, obviously a matchup against the number 28 team in the country. Some serious ranked points available for them there. Do they go 2-0? Do we see the trend line continue to move up?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, USC's too banged up right now.
Sure.
Granted, it's always a rivalry, but that's just going to be a tough one for them. The UCLA match could be really good, but no, I think Stanford finally has gotten things going on the right track. It's just I think they go 2-0. I don't think they get to the top 16.
Yeah, fair enough. Some other really good ones this weekend. South Carolina at Florida, TCU at SMU again tomorrow, UCF at TCU, Baylor at Texas, Georgia, Vandy, NCAA tournament implications for sure. Can either of Duke or UNC take a swing at Wake Forest? That'll be the other half of their road trip this weekend. It's a fantastic weekend of tennis. Again, our final regular season weekend of coverage on ESPN Plus. We are on there Thursday through Sunday to cover the Big 12 Conference this weekend. Chris and I have ACC, SEC duties Friday, Sunday as well, and then Big 10 coverage Friday, Sunday on our Cracked Rackets YouTube channel. So we are all systems go as we try to capture the end of this 2024 season for all of you college tennis fans. Make sure you tune into our broadcast so you know what's going on here in week number 14. Chris Halioris, last but not least, before we turn the page, and we'll do this one quickly because I feel like I've kept you pretty long here these last 3 weeks. Did this topic with Jay yesterday. It's something I wanted to revisit again this week, given Ben Shelton just won his first clay court title, second title of his career in Houston this past week. Let's play it. We're going to do it differently. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you to pull up the NCAA tournament winners in singles since 2023. You can use Wikipedia if you need to. We'll rapid fire through it. I want to see how far back I can go, and I swear, I did no research coming into today. I thought about it on the treadmill while I was running, and I was like, ooh, am I going to cheat and look this up? Because I can memorize things fast. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be honest with the people here. Let's just go through, and if we played this game yesterday on the phone, A, I want to see how many finals I can remember and seeing how far back I can go. B, again, just a scope of if you've been the best player in college tennis, which whether it's NCAA singles champion, someone brought up to me via text a very good idea. We should look at year-end number ones in the rankings and see how they ended up in tour rankings moving forward, as well as a translation. But if you are the best player in college tennis, typically you end up as a top 100 player moving forward as well. And just looking back through the history, are you ready for me to go back top of the mind, Chris?
Let's do it.
All right, last year, Ethan Quinn versus the GOAT. I mean, it's so early in Ethan's career, but all signs pointing up. I mean, Styler will be a billionaire, so I guess that beats being world number one, but I have said this all the time. After he beat Ozan 1-0 at the Big Ten quarterfinals, the question about Andre Styler was, what would his score against Carlos Alcaraz be right now? And that was a legitimate question with how well he was. You're like, he's going to hold at least 3 times per set. Anyways, that's the level there. 2022, how's Ben Shelton doing? Chris Halioris. Oh, yeah, he's top.
Not too bad.
He's the top-ranked American man in the world, top 15 in the rankings. He beat a guy, August Holmgren, who's also steadily risen into the top 400 of the singles rankings. 2021, again, that's the outlier. Rifus pursuing a legal career. Would he have been a top 100 player? Open discussion. Certainly had some pedigree, had success at every stage along the way, but, again, would have taken some work and, it decided to pursue something else instead. He beats Daniel Rodriguez in that final. Now, there's been some injuries, some stuff, but we haven't really heard from Rodriguez since. That's the outlier, Chris, right? That's the one that stands out. Any thoughts on those 2020s finals before we keep moving?
No, I mean, look, we all know Shelton. Rifus had talent-wise, yes. The problem is there was no chance he'd ever get there because for the same reason he left, he just wasn't into it. And if you don't live, breathe, and die with the brutal schedule you have to play just to go out on tour, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, and thinking about Hijikata comes out of that era, Blumberg comes out of that era. I mean, I could keep going from Adam Walton, who's a top 150 player in the world now, was a semifinalist at that 2022 NCAAs. He comes out of that era as well. A bunch of really good names. Again, other player, Patrick Kipson's on the rise. I guess before that, he gets us to 2019. Paul Jubb, who got off to a really quick start, still inside the top 300, even if things have kind of hit a plateau for him. But who'd he beat in that final, Chris Halioris? I think I can leave that one to you.
Yeah, Nuno Borges.
Yeah,
top 100, top 60.
Top 60 in the world. Phoenix champion just a few weeks ago, and obviously he's made something for himself. The 2018 final, Wake Forest wins the team event. Petros Risokos wins the NCAA singles final. He beats now top 100 player Borna Gojo in that final. But again, that was a loaded field, and again, that 16 through 18 era, really, really good stuff. That's the all-team final. Oh, Gabe Diallo, another player who came from the 2020s. Shout out to you. Good call in the chat. 2017, Ty Kwiatkowski beats Will Blumberg. Again, that 2017 had a bunch of withdrawals, if memory serves me correct, from the NCAA tournament, but still a really good run for Ty, who's been a top 200 guy and been a bunch of challengers, slam main draws, etc. I'm shocked he didn't ultimately end up in the top 100, but
isn't Kova top 100 now? He's really close if he's not.
Kova has been top 100. I don't know if he's another 2020s guy. Yeah, shout out to you.
He's a 2020s guy. And you got right around that turn, Galarno, who's...
Yeah, Alexi, that's another good name by you.
Mid-hundreds.
Absolutely. 2016 final. Can you do this one? Do you remember who Mackie McDonald beat? I remember this one. I'll give you a hint. He looks like he just finished a sentence at Rikers. You got it?
No, now I'm not sure I want to answer.
Okay, that's fair. I'll answer. It's Torp. He beat Torp in the final.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have said my doppelganger here now.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm just saying, no, Torp does more pull-ups and crunches. He's on a prison gym routine. He's jacked now. It's crazy. Again, shout out Torp. Mackie, your champion there, top 100 player. By the way, won doubles that year as well. 2015, Ryan Shane. Who'd he beat in the final? Noah Rubin was a top 100 player. And again, 2014, that singles final is maybe my favorite singles run of anyone because Ryan Shane caught lightning in a bottle and just was slapping winners left and right, hitting the serve 140. He just found something special. He hit a run that you see every so often. That one I remember. 14, Marcos Giron, another top 100 player. He beat Alex Sarkeesian in the final. Sark was top 200, I believe, at one point. 2013, Blas Rolla beat Jameer Jenkins, which was the last time we came a match away from a triple crown. I think Rolla was a top 100 player during his career. 11, 12, you had Stevie Johnson, top 30 player in the world. He beat, do you remember who he beat in his two finals?
I
I
have,
remember. Yeah.
I do not.
Eric Quigley of Kentucky in the
Well,
last one.
that I should have known. Yeah.
Okay, he beat the original tennis Twitter GOAT in 2011. Tennessee player, now a coach
Now,
of
coach.
the Billy Heiser coaching tree.
I was going to say it's not Woodruff.
No, Ryan Williams, who he beat in the
Okay.
2011 final. 2010 is where I hit my first issue. I don't know who Bradley Klahn beat in his singles final. Bradley Klahn, also a top 100 player, dear friend of the program. Who did Klahn beat in the 2010 final? This is where I have issues because I don't remember who he beat. I don't remember who Devin Britton beat in 09. This is why we're going to stop here. Somdev in 07, 08. One of them he beat Isner. I don't remember who he beat in the second one, but it wasn't Isner. So this is where we hit my first gap. Do you know who Bradley Klahn beat?
I do not.
All right, I'm going to have to get IT on this. This is devastating, Chris. You had one job. Know who he beat in 2010. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, wait, I think I might have it. Come on now. No, I have just the champion. Oh, I'll have to do a look here and find out what we can find. Let's see. Bradley Klahn beat someone. Anyways, we'll get IT on that in a moment, Chris Halioris. But here is what I'm remembering more broadly, and I appreciate people who are pointing out like Arthur Rinderknecht, Val Vachereau, others who have played in this era. If you are the best player in college tennis, you are typically a top 100 player at some point in your career, if not right away. And it just speaks to, again, this as a pathway to the pros, right? It just speaks to the level of college tennis is sensational. And that's really the point I'm trying to make with this segment, Chris Halioris. Plus, you know me. I love history lessons. But any thoughts on these NCAA tournament champions? Any lessons or things you would take away from looking at these?
No, you just make me think it's time to refresh that little picture I had of the tracking the top 5 from each year, where I was keeping, the highest peak rank of all of those guys. I'm going to have to refresh that and get it. I don't think I added the last 2 years to it. So we'll have to add those. But no, I mean, and I think that paints an even better picture of how much more competitive it's getting at college. And it's not just the top guy. Your top 5 guys are all taking shots at top 100 runs now.
I'm devastated. I'm going to have to text Bradley Klahn and be like, hey, who'd you beat in your final? And he's going to be like, well, you don't remember my final? And be like, dude, I got a lot of finals on my mind that I'm going to need some help organizing. But yeah, that's where I fall short. I can do all the 2010s. Before that, did college tennis even happen? Chris Halioris, some scholars would argue no. It is a fascinating look back, and just a reminder that, again, whoever emerges out of the NCAA singles tournament this year, and do you have a favorite right now? Again, I know we've had the guide discussion, but just straight up NCAA singles tournament, who's your favorite? Is it Rodesh by default?
I'm gonna stick with my gut,
Micah?
and I'm going Micah.
I know your gut, Chris Halioris. I know your gut. That's the perfect way for us to end week 13 is, yeah, he has been that good. I don't hate that thought at all. And again, who will join the list of NCAA singles champions? That's a conversation we can have come May. That said, that's your look at week 13 and your preview of week 14 and this night's and tonight's episode of The Deciding Point. A thank you, as always, to you, Chris Halioris, who, by the way, you're the most important man in college tennis right now. Not only do you make all of our broadcasts happen and make them happen that much more fluidly, no one's phone right now rings more. I know the NFL draft is next week, but if I had to compare your log to Adam Schefter's log, you get more work right now because everyone wants to know, what do I have to do? How close am I? Is there any scheming that can be done to get me into the tournament, to get me as a seed? Talk us through, again, what if calculator, rankings, all available on College Tennis Ranks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, doesn't stop the coaches from calling anyway. It's been nonstop since the weekend for sure. But yeah, collegetennisranks.com. You can go out there. You can hit the what if calculator. You can plug in all the results upcoming for the week. You can add your own custom results. see what it's going to do to teams and their ranking, and just keep up with the projected rankings there. They're live. I try to keep them updated as quick as I can during the week. So hopefully we're kind of up to the, hour-ish or so in many cases. But yeah, it's that time of year. It's not, and the funny thing is it's not just the team, it's at the same time, I field the questions about, hey, should we play our doubles team this week? Because I don't know if we can afford a loss and they might get knocked out, or what do I need to do to get my singles or doubles guys in, kind of thing. So it's all kinds of crazy questions. But the teams are always the most intriguing, because the teams do have the ability to add matches. Some teams save dates, others just look to schedule double headers. There are a few teams out there right now that are actually looking at kind of a, hey, if we're both out and we're right on the outside looking in the last day before we can, but before we can't anymore, we're just going to play each other. And so there's a few of those out there still. So yeah, it's going to be a fun final 2 weeks of the season here.
Here's what I'll say. Chris is much better at the math than I am. It's not even a question. Top of the head, singles, doubles, team, doesn't matter. If you have a rankings question, he's who to turn to. But here's why you'll want me on that call as well. Because after Chris tells you what you need to do, you're going to need to come up with an idea to execute how you do that. And that's where I come in. Like, if you need a funky last day format, double headers, or a little impromptu blue-gray part 2, that is where I come into play. So I'm just saying, call Chris for the math questions, but get me on the line, and then we can get creative together as a group. But yes, your website is a blessing. I showed it to my little brother, and he was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Yeah, you thank God you only have one class this semester, because, yeah, you're going to be spending some time on it moving forward." That said, that's your look at tonight's episode. I thank you, as always, to Westoff for making tonight's action possible. A shout-out to him.
Austin Childs, by the way.
Is who Bradley Klon beat?
Yeah, 6-1, 6-2.
Yeah, sorry, Austin Childs, but you win only 3 games. That's why I forgot you. No, I'm just kidding, Austin Childs. You are much better at tennis than I could ever be. That said, a shout-out to you, Chris Halioris, as well, for the fantastic Chris Halioris, our super producer, Daniel Westoff, and all of us here at both Cracked Rackets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Chris, what do we tell our fans?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.